Good evening and welcome to Mission Transition CV Podcast, episode 3. Today, I've got a very special guest of mine, a good friend of mine, Richard Doyle. Before I introduce him to you, I wanted to just give him a good introduction because I think he deserves it. Richard, the reason why I've asked Rich to come onto this podcast is because, one, he's ex-military. He's transitioned through his military career over here now in the UAE. And I just feel it's beneficial for people that are watching this podcast so they can take a lot out of this and, a bit of hints and tips. So I'm going to now introduce Mr. Richard Doyle. Hi, welcome.
Hi, Stu. How you doing?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. How are you? You okay?
Yeah, not too bad. I feel like this has had the tables turned slightly because I feel like I recruited you a little bit.
This is true. This is very true, which we can come on to.
Yeah.
Okay. Halfway through, but it is true. It is true. You did indeed. And so, yeah, it has reversed a little bit now. But I think what we should do, first of all, is let's start from, you've obviously been in the military. Start from your military career and how you found it, how many years you did, where you've been, and all that sort of stuff, first of all. I think people would be interested to hear about that.
Yeah, of course. So, a long time ago, naughty boy, back in Birmingham, and I was always like really interested in the army.
Yeah.
I was always like, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. Ever since I was like a real small boy. My dad kind of was in the military as well, so he was in reserves.
Yeah.
But I wanted to kind of surpass that, and join the infantry. When they'd done the barb test and absolutely flew with flying colours and got straight into the infantry. So from there, joined my local regiment, the Staffordshire Regiment, 2001, and everything was very much geared towards the Northern Ireland crisis.
Yeah.
So all the way through Harrogate, it was definitely like aligned to that. And then obviously September 11 happened and everything changed from there. Went to battalion, and very quickly we was wrapped up with going to Kosovo, Bosnia, which was a really, really good tour.
Yeah.
Especially as like a young 17, 18-year-old lad, going out on to Kosovo. And it wasn't super kinetic. There was a car bomb that kind of went off on the main Bill Clinton Boulevard, but other than that, there was a lot of patrolling. So really getting like your techniques down, your TTPs, and understanding like how to patrol. And then we come back, and on the way back, leaving that tour, obviously there's a lot of talk about Iraq and Afghan that were currently kicking off. There was a big kind of to push to get out there, and we didn't go out there until kind of Telic 6. The Staffords were split between Alamara and Basra, and I went into Basra. So that's where we operated as a company. Again, another spicy little tour that was.
Stories. So what year did you start? You joined the year. What year did you join the army? 2001. And then what year was you in Iraq?
So Kosovo was 2002 to 2003.
Yeah.
And then the first tour was, I believe, 2005, if I'm correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So went and done Telic 6. That was when the two SAS guys got lifted at the Basra police station. So there was a major cordon around there, and the SAS got brought in. We was the outer cordon. Some interesting times, yeah. Some riots. There was a lot of footage on the news. 20 guys kind of packed into the back of a Warrior infantry vehicle. Yeah. So that was an interesting tour. And then we literally pretty much did like a back-to-back tour then, which was Telic 9. So where the normal transition would be like a fair few years, probably 3-4 years, we literally started training and then went back out onto the next tour for Telic 9, which was a real quick turnaround. This time the whole battalion went, and this time the threat of indirect fire, we got mortared heavily. So very different. Obviously, the stresses of being intense, sleeping in a coffin that we've made ourselves, and there was quite a few casualties from IDF. So, again, wouldn't say necessarily any difficult from the first tour, but they each had their own kind of peaks and troughs.
But you think? Sorry, I didn't mean to stop there. Sorry, I was going to say, did you always want to do 22 years, or did you just kind of like just keep going until you thought, actually, the time just kind of like went really, really quickly? Do you know what I mean? To the point where you are currently, what we're talking about now is you in Iraq.
I would say to that point, I was always interested in like the army and staying. I
Yeah.
promoted for the first tour, not from Kosovo. I'd have to be doing NCO Carter, but very much back in them days, like you felt like if you was a new lad, and putting your head above the parapet and saying I wanted to go and do an NCO Carter, like yeah, it just wasn't worth it. Do you know what I mean? You wouldn't be kind of looked at fair and not addressed on your capability, more about the time that you spent in the military. I think that was very much from the older times of kind of how things were done. Promoted on the first tour of Iraq, and got asked to go and do juniors in between them two tours, and was like, no, rather go and have another scrap, like
Yeah, yeah.
get back out to
Got
Iraq.
past of it.
After that, kind of was like and ahhing of like, do I want to get out? Is now the time to kind of to go? And like I thought, no, I'll keep at it. And then luckily, or unluckily, I was selected to go and do juniors. Wasn't to be. And I'm gonna kind of address this, and like the guys in the army always know that I always kind of push this. But unfortunately, I had cancer, which was like in and around like the 2008 time. I always remember like going into Sergeant Major's office, and me and one of my pals, and he was like, "One of you two is going," and like I was like, "I don't feel well," and my other pal was like, "I've got a wedding to go to." Do you know what I mean? So, luckily, my cancer trumped his. Do you know what I mean?
That's the bit.
Yeah. But like following that route there, kind of it was a little bit misdiagnosed. So I was like misdiagnosed for a year. So I was still going on exercise
Yeah.
for a long period of time. And then even to the point where it was like completely misdiagnosed. And they kind of told me on that day that, yeah, you've got cancer. Like I went out on exercise because I didn't know what to do. Like sitting in my room and just got kind of,
Easy. And you still kept on going, yeah?
yeah,
Just get on with it, didn't you? If I remember rightly, I know everybody. Tell a little bit more about that, because that is pretty impressive, to be fair. You've just been told you've got cancer, you're on exercise, and your response was, well, I'll obviously get tested, get
yeah,
checked out to confirmation, but you still went back out and carried on, didn't you? Is that
yeah.
right? Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I had a little bit of an easier time, but
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it was literally like a phone call. I had a little bit of a wobbly moment, and then yeah, with like, what else you gonna do? I'm gonna sit in my room or drink myself
Well,
tube.
that's it, exactly. You just got on with it. At least it kept your mind occupied, so to speak,
Yeah,
in different ways. So that got you to, after that, then you've obviously done seniors. So you've been back to Brecon, did your sergeant's course, then you was at battalion after being a few different posts at Catterick and instructors and courses there. That's correct, yeah.
yeah. I went. I literally had like a bit of a 7-year gap where that would probably be most people's kind of career in the military.
Yeah.
But then as soon as I got the all clear, the guys had already gone to like one of the Herricks, and I tried everything to kind of get out there. So I like went and done an all arm storeman's course, and they were like, "No," and I literally had to get like a letter from the professors to say it doesn't matter how many times he jumps through like windows and crawls around like
Yeah.
doing section attacks, it's not going to bring like cancer back on. So I went and done juniors, and then went and done a Canada, and then went straight back out onto like an Afghan. But obviously that was a 7-year like kind of gap. And then went and done juniors, went and done, like you says, the Afghan, come back, and the amalgamation happened. So that was like a bit of a re-roll from one Stafford's free Mercian, and then to kind of the Mercians as one Mercian, as we not necessarily know it as today, but 1 and 2.
Yeah.
And then from there, we'd always been kind of armored, so we had to kind of bring that along with like the light roll guys that were joining. I went and done seniors after that, and then kind of was pushing towards like a full career. Went to Estonia, and kind of this is where like the tailing off of my career kind of started, very much so. So went to Estonia. Guys are kind of getting pretty bored with the tour. You're allowed 2 cans to drink. Obviously, I like
Two's
to,
very
yeah, I like to go to the full max. And it's flat top roofs, and we was having a kind of 2 cans, and we was like, let's bring some drink back and have a couple of beers. And there was a whole wave of like people getting caught, not getting caught, doing stupid things. Some guys getting charged. And just because of the guys that I was with, kind of like the senior guys, yeah, we felt the full force of that.
Yeah.
So I got bussed. My wife, who's also in the military, She was there and she says, like, don't get me wrong, like what should have happened probably should have happened, but the way that you was dealt with was like really, really unfair. And she decided to pull the pin and like say, like, I don't want to be in the army. She was reaming, so she left the army. This was starting to come up to like kind of COVID period.
Yeah.
And when she left, she got recruited to go out as a contractor to Afghan, to train the Afghan National Army as a fleet manager. And then I was carrying on with my kind of progression within the military. Afghan fell like during the height of COVID, and then she came back and she got picked up straight away in Dubai, which was really good. And then from there, kind of it was like just keeping like a bit of an ear out, and because COVID was happening, the chance to kind of go over wasn't as accessible. But then when the kind of sanctions of being able to fly eased off,
Yeah.
I started to go back and forth like on a regular because obviously she was getting like relatively good wages, and the flights were cheap, and that's where kind of I started to whisper into your ear a little bit, so I started coming out.
You just saying that, I mean, obviously I know this story now, but people that are watching wouldn't know the story. But would it be right to say that if it wasn't for that night or that boozy night where you got in trouble, had a few more drinks than you shouldn't have done, Athena pulling the pin, as you said, and moving and thinking, right, that's had enough. If it wasn't for that, then we wouldn't be sat here now over here.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? And I was mad. How crazy is that?
yeah,
I've known the story, but I've never actually thought about it. Just as you were talking about it, then I thought, wow, if it wasn't for that, and it's just crazy how, a good thing or a bad thing that somebody does can have such an effect on lots of other people, and it's proof because we're sat here now in Dubai chatting on a podcast. Do you know what I mean about our army career? And obviously, I've known you quite a few years. I think
yeah,
maybe from when you was a full screw,
yeah,
and like our crosses our paths crossed. Sorry, from like Catterick, and then it was mainly when we got to battalion down in Bulford when we was both kind of like sergeants. And you just touched on it already, but obviously I'll let you talk a lot more about it in a second because it's really important. But I purely remember the reason why you were kind of like spinning bits, talking about what it's like over here in the mess, talking to us in the mess about what it's like over here. So just elaborate a little bit more on that because it's really, really key and it's important in my life, Louise's life, and my kids' life.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, as it says, there's probably points in my career where like I thought, you know what, I wish I could have done better. I wish I'd gone for that course, or
Yeah.
might not have left at a certain times or whatever. But a lot of those events probably were catalysts that moved into other events. So that was like a pivotal moment, I would say. Absolutely. Me starting to go back and forth over to Dubai. Obviously, it was the kind of drawdown of COVID. I'm really lucky to say that my sister was out here, and it was one of the kind of like the big regrets of like just for the tempo of the army. Kind of family life. I've got two daughters from a previous marriage, so trying to get to see them. So you're going on exercise and all that sort of stuff, and then coming back trying to spend quality time with them, and then going on very different tasks and stuff like that and courses. So me having a chance to go over and see her, it says is something that I really do regret. But obviously when Athena was there and like even with the drive of money, do you know what I mean? Her being able to provide that to get over was fantastic. With my view probably slightly skewed. Absolutely. She was working. I was coming over for like long weekends and downtime within the military,
Yeah.
and kind of I wouldn't say that party boy lifestyle, but definitely like big wide eyes into like
Yeah.
into the city and like having drinks and going around and doing various different things and just like having a real like appreciation for the city and the country. Do you know what I mean? How clean it is, how like accommodating everybody is over here, like the work ethic has always been like fantastic. So then when I was coming back into mess and it was always like the big boys club, and I had a fantastic group of friends. And once the drinks get flowing and you're spinning them bits, guys are listening and you sort of see like certain individuals their ears prick up and say like, yeah, yeah, yeah. But it never actually comes to fruition.
No.
Um,
That's
which
okay.
which is an annoyance to me, do you know what I mean? Because there's like such a big wide world out there. And I remember telling you, and you was one of the key advocates for it. And there was still a couple of guys like back in our
Right.
battalion now that are definitely like they always keep in contact with us. And I've had one recently, like a really good pal of mine, and he's coming to the end of his career, and he's like touching base with me, which is absolutely fantastic. But I says you was definitely one of the ones that was like, absolutely tell me more.
And probably not one of the ones you'd have thought, even though I always remember sat in the mess and it was kind of like you was telling the story. You know, I think I remember you sat near the bar and we're all like sat round you, like ready to have our time still moving before we get to bed. But it was, I always remember it and I'm like, I had my full attention.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just the one time, you know, it happened on many, many occasions. And I remember sitting there thinking, wow, he's really got something. And I knew you anyway, do you know what I mean? So I kind of like trusted what you were saying. And I thought, do you know what? I'm gonna have a bit of this. I'm gonna look into this more and more. And I remember started picking your head and everything and that, which a lot of other people did. But the thing is, though, with me, which you'll know, is that if I want to do something, I'll make it happen, and I'll just make it happen. So first of all, thank you, thank you very much for telling them stories because that was absolutely amazing. And I think one of the reasons why I wanted you to come onto this podcast is because there's a lot of people that are going to be watching this that would be love, and I'm not just that has to be military. Anybody that's in, whether they're civilians, you know, or in the military, that want to possibly leave their everyday sort of life in the UK or wherever they are, and maybe try and come over. Not necessarily it has to be Dubai, you know, Abu Dhabi. You know, we both live in Abu Dhabi,
Yeah.
coming to Abu Dhabi, but anywhere in the UAE or Middle East. And I just think it's really important to hear your story because you're living proof that if you want to make it happen, you can make it happen, and you have done, and you've smashed it out of the park. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, all right. It started with a little bit with Athena. You know, she's kind of like set the boundary sort of thing, the foundation, I should say. Sorry, and then so it made that way of easier transition for yourself. But for yourself, right? I mean, what advice have you got for people that be watching this are thinking, "Wow, I want a piece of that," or I want something different. Whether it doesn't have to be, you know, leaving the military in any sort of job. Have you got any advice for that sort of thing?
I would say look into it, do your research. Probably goes against everything that I do say. But like my wife is very much like a a bull in a china shop, I'd say. Like, do you know what I mean? And she absolutely just went like hell for leather.
Yeah,
She might disagree, but like she'd heard of stuff and she just kind of went for it. Whereas I was a bit more kind of not necessarily slow and steady, but like I definitely wanted to do my research. Like I've got invested effort in kind of the children, so it needed to be like right.
right. Yeah.
And as it says, I've got my sister and my brother-in-law, and he's got his daughter back in the UK and then two children over there. So I could see that like it worked. Do you know what I mean? And the way that he was kind of going about being a father and providing, it just added extra opportunities. But like that was a key consideration, especially if you've got like a split family. That's something that you really do need to consider. And the job that I've got now offers like a really good package where not only do we get like all my annual leave, but I've got like 6 weeks work from home. So that's key. I can go back to the UK. And that was like something really important. And the job that I was originally looking at, which kind of like bled into the job that I've got now. So looking at the close protection field, I knew that the work out here wasn't necessarily directly in line with direct contracts. There was a lot of ad hoc work, which kind of played into what I wanted to do. So if I couldn't have got like a permanent role within a company like I have now, you could have picked and choose like the tasks that you do, and then say turn stuff off to go back and see the kids.
Yeah.
So that was like a real key factor. Um, as I said, but that doesn't necessarily mean just doing your research into kind of what matters for family life, doing your research into kind of the job role that's specific for you. Do you know what I mean? Bringing them capabilities across. Does it necessarily always matter? I found that sometimes it's not necessarily what you know, but who you know. And the links out here, yeah,
So true that is.
it is really important. And I've seen jobs come off or just not necessarily knowing too much about a certain subject, but just the way that you deliver stuff,
Yeah.
and how good you are doing your job, will bring you across the line sometimes. Because I've seen some really, really capable guys delivering some fantastic tasks that we support, and I would choose them like hand over fist. Whereas sometimes a CV might read fantastic, but it's not exactly tend to get you over the line. If that
No.
makes sense.
100%. And like obviously we'll talk about what you do now
Yeah,
in a little while, but I think from what I found, and you touched on it, networking is massive, and LinkedIn is a fantastic platform to do that. Whether that's going, you know, with through people that you already know, and it just builds and builds. And that's how I got through here, was obviously networking through people that Athena knew, and new people that I found here as well. Obviously, the reason why we sat here is one of the guys, Chris Redmond. This is his studio. This is his, this is his little fortress. And I remember he was one of the first people that I found on LinkedIn, started connecting. I thought, oh, he's really interesting. And now I'm using his facilities,
Yeah.
So it's really, really powerful. But I think one of the reasons why I wanted to do this podcast, for not just yourself, but for other people as well, and you touched on it with the CV, is that I want people in the military, first of all, and not just the military, but from what I know, is that they don't know how to use LinkedIn. They don't know how to network. We're good at networking in the military, really, really good at that. But when we have to go outside the big wide world and start networking to try and get our next stage of our next phase of our future sorted, that's when people find it difficult. And I think people find it even more harder because they just think, right, I've done all of this, and this, and my CV is the best thing going. CV is not enough these days. It really isn't, especially if you want to come over here with not necessarily the big boys, but do you know what I mean? Like, where it's so much more competitive.
Yeah.
So that's why I feel that if I can get people in a studio like yourself and other people in the future to talk about what they do, what they're looking to do next, and that, then they're selling themselves even more so. Do you know what I mean? Rather than just what's on a piece of paper. So I think it's really, really important. And I think if people are watching this that want to get more hints and tips and advice, that they definitely, I'm sure you won't mind people reaching out to you, and obviously myself as well. But that brings us on nicely now. So you've done your 22 years in the military, retired from the military. Some people could take their foot off the gas, so to speak. You've obviously moved over here. You found a role that's right for you, your family. So just tell a little bit of people about what you actually do now. What's your role? Your 9 till 5 or whatever hours you're working on that now.
Well, what I'll say is I'll kind of jump back a little bit, kind of just to kind of address like the movement through the final stages of like my military career, and then push on to kind of where I found that. So like, I was getting up to the 22-year point, and it was like, do you stay in now for them extra 2 years for Bang? And it's kind of like one of the points that when you invited me onto the podcast, like I wanted to address. And we've seen, and we definitely know like friends now that are currently facing this at the moment, and Bang has just been extended now to 7 years. And like one of my best friends has just been faced with this. And then somebody else that we know has been speaking about it on LinkedIn as well. And he'd gone and done loads of courses and was ready to leave. And then kind of like the wave that in front of him. And he's just accepted that accepted the 7 years Bang, which was slightly a bit of a shock to me, because I thought he was ready to take that leap. Well, and I'd spoken to him like on a numerous amount of occasions. Potentially, if I was faced with it, would have had like a thought in the back of my head, maybe. But at that point, I didn't want to do 2 years. Like, for what reason? Do you know what I mean? I wasn't going to promote. Like, I'd done like really well within my SJAR. And like they said, like if you would take it, like would potentially move you about a little bit. Like, I don't know if I could have gone one up, but yeah, it was just something that I thought, you know what, now's the time. I need to make that move. And I thought, if I didn't, am I just prolonging me getting exposure to like the big wide world? And I think if you leave it for that length of time, you're only going to get out at a certain amount of time and still be faced with that unless you commission into it. And we've all got some friends that have commissioned and look 70 when they're only like 50. So yeah, it's a problem that I definitely didn't face, but yeah, I was ready to make that move. And I think I had like quite a long time. I wasn't deployable because I was getting out, and I was back in battalion, and I was with a fantastic group of friends, and I still keep in contact with them all now. And yeah, I had like about 14 leaving parties.
You sure did. You definitely did there, mate. And they were some crazy parties. They were brilliant. They were
absolutely awesome.
How many different fancy dress did you get dressed up in? There was those, wasn't there?
Yeah, it was incredible. And to my detriment, I managed to get through all of them with like all of my hair. No tattoos. Yeah, there was all sorts going on.
Got away with it.
Yeah, so I was like considering what could I gone and done for that point, and I was looking into the military training, and I was also looking into like the security aspect. Um, Obviously, over here, the training kind of dropped off a little bit with like companies like yeah, we'll just leave it at that. But yeah, certain companies that kind of took a turn, and I was originally looking at close protection, and went and done the course, really enjoyed it, and was fully expecting to come out and kind of on board with various different companies. And then it was literally the first one that I pushed out, and it was a company called Secura Group that I currently worked for. Um, and it was like a ops coordinator, so I was providing support for any of the tasks that were to be run, but then also like other supporting elements, so going to do the due diligence for all of the tasks. And I pushed that CV out, kind of reiterating back to the point there of the CV. Coming from the military, like what do I put? I'm also doing section attacks, yeah. That's fantastic. But like, how do you put that? How do you quantify that? Which is a little bit hard, and yeah, for anybody out there, they definitely need to kind of lean into you, because you'll definitely help them, which I think is absolutely fantastic and
Yeah,
admirable.
it's difficult, isn't it, with the CVs, isn't it? Because we're really good at talking army speak,
Yeah,
but then trying to put it into civilian speak and still hold the same weight is quite difficult. And I struggled with that, and I think everybody does. Do you know what I mean? Like military wise, is how in the army you're the bee's knees. You've done this and done that. This is for everybody. Do you know what I mean? And then you come in civil street and you're like, right, this is what I've done. And then if you don't know how to speak civvy language, then it's not worth anything on the paper. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah,
you've got there in the end though with your CV. So obviously Secura Group brought you on
yeah.
from your CV and what you've done for your resettlement and that. So yeah. So what you're enjoying it now in Secura Group and that.
Yeah, it's a absolutely fantastic opportunity, and I mean, the founder's ex-military. One of the guys that, or sorry, females that I work with, she's ex-military, so there's definitely that component that's still there. There's still like a little bit of banner and various different bits that go on in the WhatsApp groups. But it's fantastic to get exposure, obviously, to the corporate world. Do you know what I mean? And it was a really steep learning curve, and absolutely, I'm still learning to this day, and I will carry on learning from my time at Secura Group. It's been a fantastic opportunity. Originally, there was a lot of work in the office, but there's definitely a real push now for me to go out and kind of practice what I'm preaching, and going out to these areas where we're delivering services. So helping corporate entities travel through not necessarily really risky areas, but everything from like the low risk environment all the way up to the really high risk environment. Recently got back on Tuesday from Syria. Obviously, there's a lot of companies that are looking to do market entry into there. We provide capability in the country, but it's absolutely fantastic to get like myself on the ground and experiencing that, so I can speak truth to power. Do you know what I mean? I can deliver real world experience to people that are traveling. Recently been over to Africa and been to Nigeria, been to Egypt, been to South Africa, Kenya. Do you know what I mean? Looking to go back to Egypt again. So, absolutely, like, getting out there is absolutely fantastic, and learning constantly, day in, day out. I absolutely love it. I
Do you
think that's the
think
best job.
with what you're doing now, obviously you just touched on where some of the countries that you've been to. Do you feel that because you've had that military experience in the past where you've been all over the world, that's really helped you, hasn't it? Where some people may have over struggled if they hadn't done so. Where you've got this role now, you're cutting away to like Syria, Africa, Nigeria, places like that. For a few days doing this and that, and then coming home. Where somebody else possibly that's not had that experience in the military may have struggled to do that, to being away from home and that. But now you kind of like got a nice balance where you've got to go away sometimes, but it's only for a few days, and then then I'm back home, and it's not as if it's like every few weeks. It's only like you say, it's ad hoc, isn't it?
Yeah.
So do you think that like you been going home every evening majority of the time, that's priceless now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially at your age, sort of thing, like and you can actually plan. I don't know why I say your age, but I'm older than you. Do you know what I mean? But
Absolutely Birmingham, Stu. Yeah, thanks.
you can plan ahead as well, which is absolutely that's so like perfect for me as well. But for you, like, you know, you can plan ahead and say, well, I want to go and see the kids. I want to go and do this. I want to do that. And no one can take that away from you saying, oh, you know, when you thought you was going away for, and 2 weeks later, you've got to take it off your mate because you're going on a course or something like that. Do you know what I mean? Which a lot of people that's watching this are ex-mil or in the military still will completely relate to that. So that you find now you've got a fantastic balance of life now for work and your personal.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you just mentioned there, like operational tempo kind of at the back end of our military career was like through the roof, obviously, all through the cuts. Like you getting thrown to tasks. It was always going to happen. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can see the guys like scuttling back to their rooms so they don't get spammed, and it's just harder and harder to kind of make sure that one, as a kind of a leader of men, you're not trying to protect your men where possible, but like also for yourself. Like, we provided like the first Interflex for like training the Ukrainians as well, but that was on a really short turnaround, and that was down kind of providing for them. And we understand how long that was for, but like when was the next one going to happen? And we're like just throwing names to tasks. Yeah, it was really uncertain. Whereas now, like, I don't mean to say like we chuck our own stuff out there, but like I says to kind of our CEO, like we need to push, we need to go to Syria. What can we go? And he's like, absolutely. When you've got like space within your kind of workload, yeah, just kind of book it in, or we'll like set some stuff up in a certain location. So making sure that we can get various different meetings, but schedule that. So that's kind of like the work. Uh, Travel, yeah, but on the flip side, being able to plan and say, you know what, I want to go and do a family holiday or go back and do work from home. So coming back to the UK, seeing my daughters, that's absolutely standard. Tying it in with my kind of sister at the back end of it, so the two sets of cousins can kind of see each other.
Brilliant, that.
Wife coming over to see like my sister's 40th, one of her, she's like the queen, she had like about 40th birthday.
I know, yeah,
parties.
for a long time that did.
So
Maybe just ended recently, I think.
yeah, so obviously being able to kind of do all that is really worth its weight in gold. But also like just getting home. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes there is some long nights, and one of the capabilities that our company provide is crisis response. So, for instance, like the Lebanon crisis or the recent Iran-Israel conflict. Do you know what I mean? There were long nights. There were long nights. But everybody knows that that's not going to be forever. And then there's times when you can come back and you can absolutely chill out. So peaks and troughs. Obviously coming over here and just living, I would say like definitely like a better lifestyle. Not having to dump a majority of your wages into tax is always favourable.
That's a big one, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's a great one. That's a very, yeah, that's one that I love. I absolutely love that we get paid and then that no one else can touch that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we've earned and worked hard for it, but that's ours and we can do with that as we please. Like, and I think like it's also, I found this, and I know the answer, but I'll ask the question anyway. You touched on obviously the girls, them coming to see the dad, whether it was in the before you moved over here to come to like Tamworth or wherever you was going to be in the Midlands.
Yeah.
It's still nice.
Yeah.
But when you can say to the girls, say, right, you're coming over for Christmas or New Year or whatever, 2 weeks in Dubai, where there's lots of things for, especially their age, you know what I mean? Like for them to do, the beaches and everything like that. So, you know, I know it found it with my kids now, they're over here. I see them more over here than I did when I was in Catterick. So, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so it's nice as well, because you can also, you're giving your family, your children, something that you might not have possibly had when you was their age. Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that's really, really good. That is, and I always, you know, savor their moments. Would you agree on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my mum and dad always worked, do you know what I mean? And they always tried to provide as best they could. And my dad used to work long hours. But there were definitely times when I would go to school and like wish for more. Do you know what I mean? If that makes sense. It says we always went on family holidays, but it wasn't until later that I went abroad. Whereas at least now they're back and forth, and we're planning stuff for next year already. But like just been able to send money back to my mum to get them stuff, and they're always like out shopping, and they're kind of reaching that age of 11 and 14, and it's no longer about toys and more about iPads. Of course it is. Do you know what I mean? And as with inflation, pocket money goes off before she does. So,
100%.
yeah, that all gets wrapped up. But yeah, even when they're coming over, and I think sometimes when you come over, and I wouldn't say necessarily you haven't done your research, but when you come over, I suppose to any country, and you've got a job, and if you haven't got a network necessarily there, over here, I would say is really key for that network. I think a lot of people over here are really friendly, and we've got a really good kind of friend network. And some of that was done off the back of the shoulders of my sister and brother-in-law. Literally went to the UFC with like an incredible group of lads and had like a fantastic night. Bit of a disappointing result, but yeah, it was awesome. But like as it says, where we live, in that community, and we've got something coming up on Saturday where we're all going to each other's houses on like a bit of a Halloween kind of
Yeah.
pub crawl stroke. Like the kids are all going out and like they've got all the games, like, and that's happening at Christmas, and that's like the routine. People going over for barbecues, and it's sometimes probably very in sync with what we used to do within the military, whether that was in the mess and going over just to the bar, or like you did when you was on the pads estate and
Yeah.
you was throwing parties with like some of our friends and
That's it.
just bounce between. So we kind of found that community, whereas I feel sometimes over here, sometimes people don't necessarily land there, but everybody is really friendly and you do make friends.
Brilliant.
Um,
And also as well, I think everybody, you touched on it a second ago, that everybody likes to help each other. And over here, because everybody wants everybody to be successful. And over here, it blew my mind about the networking and about how people, they're pointing you in the right direction. They do this, do that. People that you never met. Do you know what I mean? Whether that's face to face, over the phone, on LinkedIn or anything like that. And it's really, really special, that is. And it's actually because everybody over here wants to be successful. Do you know what I mean? And everybody wants to help everybody else to be successful as well. And that's why, like you've done it loads of times, I do it as well, where we try and get, even if it's just somebody that we don't know, anybody, whether it's ex-military, civilian, to get them over here to at least have a look and say, like, come on, try this, do this and that. And because we want them to be like what we're doing now, do you know what I mean? It's still hard work, 100%, do you know what I mean? But we've worked hard to get here. You've had a successful military career. I know you're over here being success in Dubai, working for Securo, and who knows what the future's going to hold for you. So I'm not going to say if there was any regrets in that, because obviously I'm sure there's not. Was there anything you could change between leaving the military to where you are currently now?
I mean, I wouldn't want to change anything because I am where I am and
Yeah.
I'm more than happy. And I made a point of mentioning it earlier. Like, would I have liked to have done better? Like within my military career, probably. These are courses that I could have probably aligned myself to, or probably had a bit more of a research into technology to understand sort of the security to make myself not necessarily more employable, but to have a better background knowledge in what we deliver. Um, is that something that we're currently delivering now? But no, but definitely there's parts of the business that kind of definitely have links to that. But could I have a better understanding of it? Absolutely. So yeah, kind of just spreading myself about a little bit more, getting more background knowledge. Do you know what I mean? Pushing myself for courses, one within the military, but two like externally within kind of like a civilian context. Um, you caught me on the spot. Like, yeah. Other than like a kind of like on a personal level, like, um, I love a good party, don't I? Do you know what I mean? So yeah,
I think you've definitely brought that from the military over to here.
yeah,
Your house is the house to be. It's on the community. It's like everybody comes to yours. It's either they start. I mean, like you say on Saturday,
yeah,
it's going to be yours is the one that starts off, and 110% it's going to be the one that everyone finishes at as well. That's just the way it is.
yeah,
But you guys love it like that. Do you know what I mean? And
yeah. Of course we do.
we myself, Louise, and my kids have all been around your house and had some good parties, and there will be a lot more to come in the near future. But listen, Rich, mate, thank you so much for your time. I've really enjoyed having a chat with you, and I'm sure there's lots of other people that will take a lot from this. So thank you very, very much for being a guest on Mission Transition. And I'm sure we'll probably do some more in the future. So
Yeah,
thank you,
hopefully.
matey.
I hope I've behaved. I know I was trying to be on my kind of my best behaviour. I curbed the language. And
We've done all right.
yeah,
We've spoken civilian terms, not just all squaddy terms and that. Do you know what I mean? So I think we found the right good balance there.
yeah.
But no, listen, mate, thank you so much. I really enjoyed it, mate. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for everybody else for watching. Hope you've enjoyed Mission Transition Series 3 podcast with Richard Doyle. Please feel free if you need any advice from myself or Richard, just give us a call or go on the Mission Transition website, or even just drop me an email at info@missiontransitionuae.com. So thank you everybody else for watching. This will be on YouTube and Spotify, and it'll also be on LinkedIn as well. And we look forward to the next episode, which will be happening in the next few weeks. So thanks for watching, and just always remember, strengthen Lexi, strengthen us. Thank you.